Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and today I'm going to talk about my best ways to use credit cards to make money or fly for free. And I love credit cards so much because I usually can make with cash back anywhere between 1.5% to 9% on everyday things I'm spending on. And also when it comes to air miles, I'm usually getting the equivalent monetary value in terms of miles of between 1.5% to 2% in return on using my mileage credit card. So between the types of credit cards I primarily like to use, they're mostly focused on getting cash back or travel reward miles, and I use them very specifically. So I tend to stay loyal to certain airline carriers, and that works for me because it's good enough for me. And definitely check out the different types of credit cards that might work for you. Like you can check out Nerdwallet or the Points Guy for different kinds of ideas as to what kinds of credit cards make sense for you. And I have 3 rules for myself when it comes to making the most of my credit card so that I'm always ahead and that the credit cards are not making as much money from me as I'm making from them. And these rules include how, number 1, I'm always paying my balances in full, so I'm never carrying a balance, and I make sure I pay the balance in full by the 28-day statement period due date. Number 2, I never am late on payments. And number 3, I don't pay extra fees if I'm not getting extra benefits that are worth it. So an example of that is I only have one credit card that I pay an annual membership fee of $95 because I think the extra benefits that I get and the amount of usage that I get out of that card per year is worth it enough to warrant paying $95 for that. But for everything else, I usually favor 0 fees and also not having a hassle to be able to redeem the points that come with the credit cards. And an exception to rule number 1 of always paying the balance in full is only if, let's say, there's a bonus period of getting 0% interest on any purchases for 12 to 15 months. So I can take my time. If I'm making a big purchase and I don't need to pay it off right away within a month, then I can just let that average out to paying gradually per month, but definitely pay it entirely in full within the 12 or 15 months of that promo period. And so those are my 3 rules. So paying balances in full, never being late on payments, and not paying extra fees if I don't have to. You know, you and I work hard for our money, and why not get some money back from using our credit cards instead of just using cash or a debit card and letting that money not give us much value back? So most of the time, usually credit cards are the ones that have incentives for us to use them, and they make their money not only on consumers using them, but by also charging service fees to merchants. So even though credit cards are benefiting primarily from merchants, you and I don't have to be paying credit cards any more than we have to through maybe a few annual fees that we might be willing to commit to. And if you also enjoy taking advantage of credit cards and ending up on top, I'd love if you could please hit that like button and subscribe because it greatly helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and I greatly appreciate it. Thanks. The sky is almost the limit for just about any kind of credit card we would want to have for our everyday spending activities. And for some people, they might prioritize getting the most amount of points back for their technology spending, or maybe on commuter transportation when they're using Lyft or Uber, or even when they're dining out a lot. There are some that give a lot of rewards for that. And for me, I look for cash back in terms of mostly in my groceries and sometimes when dining out, and when there's revolving categories and other things I care about, like getting cash back on gasoline or from wholesale clubs, or also on TV streaming and internet and cell phone bills. So to me, those are the kinds of categories that I look forward to when I can get up to usually 5% cash back. But recently, I was surprised that one of my credit cards actually gave me 9% back on my grocery spending. So that was actually kind of cool and surprising because usually I might be lucky to get 5% cash back on groceries, but every now and then, I guess, a blind mouse finds some cheese, or however this idiom goes. But that's one way that I get some cash back, is I usually aim for getting the minimum, which is 1.5% cash back on almost all of my spending. But I know some cards also offer 2% cash back on anything, and then sometimes with special categories of 5%. And that's my favorite, is to get 5% if possible. And then when it comes to travel, the things that I usually get points for would be things like if I'm booking my flight ticket, or if I'm staying at certain hotels, or if I'm dining out, I also get extra points for that. As well as, one of my favorite things by having a travel reward card is the 0 foreign transaction fees. So much better than using typical domestic credit cards that give cash back is a travel rewards credit card that gives you the 0 foreign transaction fees. And then also another benefit of having a credit card is if I'm using it when I'm renting a car, and then I can waive the collision damage, and then I don't need to have extra car insurance because I'm just going off the one I already have, and I use my credit card as an extra form of insurance. And also, you would be surprised, but you get a lot of consumer protection benefits by using credit cards. So unlike using cash, which if you get scammed in a transaction, then it's hard to get your cash back. But when you're using a credit card, you can usually be protected if the item somehow breaks, or if you lose it, or if you get scammed, you can usually dispute it with the merchant. So I love using credit cards for a lot of these benefits. And these benefits, as you can see, span beyond just getting cash back or reward miles. In addition, I like to think of my travel rewards credit card as not just a credit card, but almost like a secret savings account where I'm banking all the frequent flyer miles that I've done and using that so that if I don't feel like paying for a flight, or if it's last minute and the flights are really expensive, I always have my extra reward miles to be able to use and then be able to book a flight. And this is beneficial if you can collect a bunch of miles. So I usually like to keep anywhere from at least 80,000 to 130,000 worth of miles, because that can be redeemed for plenty of round-trip flight tickets. And what that means to me is, like, let's say I have 100,000 in air miles, and the value of this equates to me of being anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000. So if I have certain flights, like let's say I have a domestic round-trip flight that is worth $600, maybe I don't want to pay $600, but using a round-trip ticket might cost me 25,000 miles. So I can compare and see, am I getting the value out of a $600 domestic ticket by redeeming 25,000 miles? And I can do the math to see if it falls at least in the window of getting 1.5 to 2% worth of cash based on the per mile rate, and see if it's worth it. And otherwise, depending on which makes more sense, I might buy the flight ticket just with normal money, or I might use air miles and save myself from having to pay for the flight. Other benefits with using a travel rewards credit card includes things like getting a free first checked baggage for myself and a companion on the same flight ticket. And that's usually a value of $100 per each checked bag. So if you and a companion are traveling, that's saving you $200. So that in and of itself makes the $95 fee worth it. But then again, it also makes you wonder, why did airlines have to introduce fees for the first checked baggage anyway? I know they're hurting, but years ago when they made the first checked baggage cost something, that was sort of annoying. So we're almost like beholden to using this type of travel reward credit card so we don't have to pay extra for a checked bag. But anyway, and then there's also like club passes, so I can hang out in an airline's lounge in an airport and raid their snacks and coffee before my flight or after my flight. So that's usually a nice little perk as well. And then in addition, if we look at some other rewards credit cards, sometimes they have amazing bonuses. Like we can get 100,000 bonus miles by opening a Chase Sapphire card by spending $4,000 in the first 3 months. And that sounds pretty nice. But then again, you have to spend a lot of money just to earn the equivalent of $1,000, which is what 100,000 points breaks out to. So you have to decide if that's worth it and if you can spend that much, because for me, I'm a financial minimalist, so I'm not usually spending too much money. So I have to plan carefully if I can make something like that worth it, but I try to take advantage of credit card opening bonuses as much as possible. And sometimes I close them and then go for the bonus again, and then you just have to check whether you can qualify for the bonus again. Like sometimes there are restrictions, like you can't qualify for the bonus if you got the bonus in the last 24 months, or even in some cases like with Chase Sapphire, if you look at their fine print, you can't have opened the credit card and gotten the bonus within the last 48 months. So that's something to just double check if you're trying to make as much money as you can from credit card bonuses. The funny thing I found for me is that I usually don't have just one credit card that I pay for any particular kind of bill, and I switch them out depending on if I'm getting more rewards, points, or miles on the different type of expense that it might be. So I end up changing things up a lot and not having things just be automatic so I can maximize the amount of rewards, points I'm getting. And for example, some of the revolving categories where I can get 5% cash back, I might use a different credit card if, let's say, over the course of a certain quarter, I get 5% back on TV streaming or cell phone bills, or also internet, and also gasoline, groceries, like I said earlier, and wholesale clubs. And there's also department stores, Amazon, PayPal, restaurants, drugstores, commuter transportation, and home improvement stores, for which we can sometimes get the most amount of cash back if we're trying to make the most of those kinds of cards. And otherwise, the rest of the time, I'm okay with settling for just 1.5 to 2% cash back or miles on whatever I'm purchasing every day. And that's good enough for me. So those were my best ways to use credit cards so that I'm always ending up on top and ahead, as well as if you'd like to learn more in detail of my best practices of how I use credit cards like a boss, feel free to check out that video because I go through a few more scenarios of how I use credit cards, as well as I strive to always have the best credit score possible. So for many years, I've had a credit score of over 800. And if you are interested in learning how you can boost your credit score, feel free to check out my video on top 7 ways to boost your credit score so you can also achieve a score of 800 or better. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments how you make the most of your credit cards. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time.